which was not done, and what everybody has to be trained on by every month. This will help with our insurance policy and help with decreasing the rates, and it also allows employees to be trained online. They're focusing on goals. So here's the selection of the benefits consultants, the broker, performance management, as I said, really looking at bringing that in-house, or not in-house, making it electronic. So we can do that. The I-9 forms and the employment files, they're going through an entire audit. A benefits fair, which we've never done here. So it's looking through and being able to talk to people from the benefits, and then being able to get your blood drawn and go through and see, you know, your cholesterol, all of those things. And hopefully we will have some vendors here so that they can really take some time and just learn about healthy practices and have their blood drawn once a year and be able to compare that year for year. Compensation administration, that ensure that we're in compliance with the Equal Pay Act and the Equal Work Law in Colorado, so they're working on that right now. And then the CDL, we're trying to make sure that that entire process has an SOP. We're following the process, but it's not SOP'd at this time. I believe that's it for human resources. Yep, so you can keep going. Then I believe we go to parking and mobility. Kevin?
Thank you, Denise. Good evening,
Let me ask, is everybody okay, or do we need another quick break? We probably have, you know, we're on number 50 and we have another 50 some slides to go. Do we need a break, or do you want us to keep going through parking?
I think we had a break not too long ago.
Okay.
We could take a
Maybe
quick
at
poll.
9. Hopefully by 9 we're done, but we'll see.
Okay, let's push on. Let's see where we are at 9 o'clock.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Although tonight I will be addressing the parking goals for 2020, we will continue to identify opportunities and address improvements that will enhance mobility. The future plan will advance and evolve community goals identified in Plan Manitou and align with planning efforts with other mobility projects. SP Plus, along with city administration, has been and will continue to conduct a thorough rate review for all parking rates. That will include everything from on-street parking lots, the citation fines, permits, and the recommendation will be presented to the Transportation and Parking Board based on the best practices to control turnover and drive the longer-term parkers to the off-street lots. With that, the Transportation and Parking Board has asked us to simplify our parking zones. We are currently working through a revision of our first proposal based off feedback from the Transportation and Parking Board that we will present at the May meeting. The parking department is also, with the assistance of the public information officer, promoting the use of Park Mobile. That is an app that is available for anybody in town to pay for parking without having to wait in the lines that the summer can create downtown at the kiosks, and without having to touch the kiosk during the current COVID-19 problems. We are also researching the addition of paid parking. Currently, the low-hanging fruit for that seems to be all the parking on El Paso Boulevard around Memorial Park, to add paid parking to Hiawatha, and also to potentially add paid parking to the city employee lot on the weekends. The recommendations will also be presented at May's meeting to the Transportation and Parking Board. With compliance of the safer at home and stay at home orders, the parking staff will be operating at a 50% capacity to help slow the spread of the COVID-19. With that, besides the enforcement of the RPPs, all the open parking that is now back to paid, they will be cleaning all the kiosks at a minimum of 3 times a day to help slow the spread of the COVID-19. All the information will be sent out via social media, the city website, parkmanitou.com, for the pay it forward, as well as the use of Park Mobile. For the mobility implementation, myself and Deputy City Administrator Roy Cheney have been working with the company Parking Logics, and they offer a system that you all were briefed on earlier this year about real-time availability in the parking lots. Through diligent work between myself, Roy, and the company, we have finalized designs that are currently awaiting shipping. We're hoping to have shipping confirmed and a date by the end of the week, and we will begin implementation once they arrive. Public Services will complete the installation. Roy and myself will assist in the overseeing of that. That way we not only have a thorough working knowledge of the back-end operation, but as well as any maintenance issues that would come up that we could address easily with current staff. This system also offers real-time data to a website with links available to the city website, parkmanitou.com, and we will post it all over the social media outlets for anybody coming into town to be able to check the website prior to even arriving, and they will be able to see any availability closer to their destination in the off-street lots. And with the incline and bar trail as popular as it is, this should and hopefully reduce traffic up Ruxton if they're able to see prior to even coming to town that the lot is full. Part of the Ruxton functionality study implementation, the plan has been made to remove all the paid parking from Ruxton Avenue for at least the summer of 2020. This will help ensure there's some more available parking to the residents along the corridor and also reduce vehicles traveling up Ruxton to help improve the quality of life for all of the Ruxton residents. We also plan on placing a bar lot parking sign that was prior discussed with the parking logic system prior to reaching the Ruxton roundabout. And hopefully that will give the hikers a last chance effort to turn around without having to go all the way up Ruxton and spin around behind the Iron Spring Chateau. Staff has already been out removing duplicate signs along Ruxton to help eliminate sign pollution. Part of the technology upgrades, again, that goes back to the installation of the parking logic system in all the parking lots throughout the downtown. The system will be able to be updated by staff if we have a major issue going on where we have a water line that breaks or some utility work that needs done near or in a lot. We're able to close that lot in real time and direct parkers to a different area to help reduce the traffic and the stress on the flaggers and the workers trying to deal with any issues that are happening there. Next slide, please. And finally, one thing to go in line with everything else moving to the online side, we are currently in talks with our vendor, Passport Inc. They currently do all of our permits for RPPs, the lots, and any contractors. They're working on a program that will allow online sales, issuance, and renewals for all the permits. This will not only at the beginning of the year when all the residents are rushing for their new RPP permits, eliminate the frustration that they're feeling waiting in the long lines. They will be able to provide all this information through the system online, be able to print a temporary permit so there's no worry that while the permanent permits are being created and delivered, whether it be via mail or the resident decides to pick it up, that they will not receive a parking violation for having an out-of-date permit. And that's all I have for the parking updates, and I would like to pass it on to Christine Lowenberg.
Hey, Kevin, thanks so much. Hey guys, it's nice to see all of you tonight, Mayor, City Council. I'm really excited to be here tonight to talk to you all in a more formal way about what's happening in planning. The last opportunity I think all of you had to hear from planning in a formal way was the update last fall around budgets. And so tonight, I think I'd like to take just a few minutes and cover that. And there's been some new priorities that have been put on us. And then of course, with new staff comes along always new opportunities and new challenges. So So this first slide, I wanted to share with you a fun picture. So we have on Tuesdays and Thursdays what we call our huddle, right? So for me, this is not just a meeting to sit around and talk. It's a meeting where we get together in a sort of a sports-minded fashion. What's going on? How do we get it done? What are the challenges? What are the joys? What can we celebrate? This picture I couldn't resist sharing with you guys because I showed up to our meeting. I was the third one on, and 2 people already had a hat on, and they said to me, "Where's your hat?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm actually ready for this because in our Friday group, which is Roy, Kevin, Jeff, and Tiana, we already have this like Friday hat challenge. So I have this whole stack of hats sitting here." And so I put on my hat, and then Karen comes on, and we're like, "Didn't you know? It's hat day. Where's your hat?" So we kind of went through this, and you're trying to have some fun as we're going through some challenging times right now. Anyway, so with that, we're working really hard at collaboration where we can find it. I think that's probably the biggest word that I want to get across to everyone tonight is internal to our department, internal to the city, working hard with our boards and commissions to find out what do we need to be doing, how can we better support everyone, and then in the community really listening to people. As planners, that also means, how are we collaborating regionally? Even though there's been some changes, and so we do look a little bit different, in terms of the planning department itself. We have 2 full-time planners and 1 director. The movement of a code enforcement officer over to the police department, as well as the formal movement of our senior planner, one of our senior planners, over to public works. It's changed things, and yet it hasn't. We still get together almost daily on a number of issues, and we're still working together on a lot of issues. And I'll touch on that as we get through this a little bit further. These folks also tie into a number of regional planning activities, so Colorado Water Conservation Board, El Paso County Parks Work Groups, which was really useful as we're working towards putting together our e-bike and e-mobility ordinance. We've also, over time, Karen, for example, has been a part of regional mobility opportunities. So these are really important. Internally, we've seen strengthening of relationships with the police department through Kai's movement over there. We are working as well, I think, more closely with the fire department and the development and moving along their fire training facility. We have some strong project management skills in the department, and how can we use those? How can we use that to benefit everyone? Okay, next slide, please. So as Chief Forsett mentioned, this is the COVID-19 show, right? So how has it impacted us? We've really had to really think about how do we look like a modern and this century sort of planning department in this day and age. And the foundation that the IT function has laid down for us has really been important, because we've been able to put many of our planning meetings with developers, with engineers and architects, online. It allows us to share screens, to share technologies in ways that we haven't done before. In fact, this is proven to be such an effective use of technology that I think it'll be a long-term part of how the planning department functions in the city. So that's a good thing. There aren't many opportunities during COVID where we're able to identify a positive outcome, and this is going to be positive for planning. Denise mentioned a couple of minutes ago that there is a FEMA grants team, and so that's Becca and myself, Crystal, Karen, and the 4 of us are on this group internally because of our collective background from a finance, grants, and project management and disaster recovery modality. So We meet twice a week. That third day of the week, we incorporate 2 folks from the community, Leslie and Natalie, for their functions as representing the business community. So that provides for us a great opportunity to have some formal communication between City Hall and the community at large during this time when it might be hard to get out there. Next slide, please. All right, so this slide, we're going to hover on this for just a couple of minutes, if that's okay. So, you know, I want to comment on that. Often in city government, the role of planning is not well understood. It's a mandated function. It's mandated at the state level. And there are typically 2 extreme philosophies around what a governmental planning function looks like, right? So at one end of the spectrum, it's a permit processing function. That's what it does. People come in, people bring papers, you process it, it moves on. The other end is a bit more strategic, right? And so it's that strategic function, and you're working in an advisory capacity to your city, your municipal administration, city council, to the mayor, sitting in regional, whether it's your regional county or statewide planning groups. For us, it's really important because our community is small and yet mighty, right? It's really important that we're not just processing permits, but we're also thinking strategically. We're also available as that advisory capacity for all of you here tonight. And so understanding that mandated function, I think, is really important to put our goals and our successes in context. And then why there are some new items in this PowerPoint tonight that maybe weren't there in the fall. So in 2007, as most of you know or should know, the Colorado General Assembly adopted the Predictability and Planning Act. And this act mandates that there must be a master plan at a local level. For us, it's Plan Manitou. And throughout tonight's entire presentation, that has touched every department. Every single department has had something to share that came out of Plan Manitou at some point or another. That's really important. At the state level, this planning function is housed in a planning department, and that's where we are. So we work well with everyone. And so this planning process is not just about land development. And it's also about subdivisions and zoning and platting and PUDs, the planned unit developments, and any other land development regulations or codes that we've come up with locally. Are we satisfying due process and notice and hearing requirements for legislative or quasi-judicial processes? These are some of the things that cross a planning department's plate regularly. Now, since Manitou Springs is a community of more than 2,000 residents, we are required to have this master plan. It doesn't have to be updated on a regular interval mandated by the state. But as I said, it's mandated by the function that is responsible for the Planning Commission function. And so we'll talk more about that, the Planning Commission and what's happening there in just a minute. But all of this works hand in hand. And so I just wanted to take a minute and revisit that. Manitou Springs is a unique city, right? And what's not unique for our city is that the challenges we face, like so many other communities, they can impede us, they can stagnate us, or they can help us maintain unique character as we progress. Each of those 3 statements, I'm sure, impacts each of you on City Council a different way. You've had a different, or maybe all experiences of that in the last 6 months or the last 6 years. So that's a statement that I hope is very relevant to all of you. Right. With the zoning update, let's talk a little bit about some of our specific projects. So on this slide, you see a chart that has some numbers, some information about plan review activity. These are development plans. You can see by the numbers year to date, this was through April 1st. 2019 was an extraordinary year that had to do with the hailstorms and the intense amount of damage that our community received. Historically, though, we bump along at about the same rate. And so up through April 1st, we were almost at about the same rate. Property improvement permits, we are issuing on average somewhere, let me give you a range rather than an average. We're running somewhere between 11 and 20 per week. What does that mean? A property improvement permit, that takes anywhere from an hour and a half to 20 hours to process. Those can be something as simple as pouring a slab of concrete, replacing a fence, to a new roof, an interior remodel. There can be a number of aspects to it. We have to look at drawings that are submitted, stamp drawings from architects and engineers, and hopefully identify when there are problems submitted, and sometimes we have to send them out for review. All right, so with that, then moving on to zoning update. You know, the goal with the zoning update was to receive a grant that would support our efforts. Our zoning code needs updates in a very serious way. So we were awarded $100,000. We have some additional dollars in the planning department and in another spot that we'll be pulling together. Right now, the state of Colorado is going through sort of a renaissance of zoning updates. And so there are a lot of really neat and creative strategies that have been employed. And I believe Manitou will be in that vein, that we will be comprehensive, but not to the point of strangling our community in terms of development and building homes. The next goal that was listed when this was brought to you last year was around food assessment. Food assessment, that also reaches back to Plan Manitou. This public input process is complete. We are wrapping up the report. That formal report should be released in the next 30 to 45 days. We expect by the end of June, no later than that, that all of us will get to look at that. There's an advisory committee that will be meeting here in the next week or so that has been working on this. They'll be coming back together to look at what should be a near final draft and giving us their input. So that's really exciting. These two goals are really important for our community. Next slide, please. So the next goal that was presented to you last year is short-term rental process. And so meeting the goal of reviewing the city's short-term rental process has been interrupted by current events. We are looking at technology to finish up gathering community input so that we can begin that important work of making the recommendations and ultimately meeting this goal. Also in the last city council update on the planning function, a review of e-bike and e-mobility was not a stated goal, but it has since come to our plate, if you will. And we're working on an ordinance to bring forward. Right now, as you know, there's a moratorium on this in our community that will expire in August. So we'll be working into the late spring with the idea that by early summer, we'll be reviewing an ordinance so that we can get that passed. We have some important partners such as Pike Ride who are excited to work with us. So we'll be doing everything we can from our perspective to make that happen in a way that works with the transportation and mobility studies that have been done, and here's what the residents want in our community. Also, another new goal that we're adding to this presentation tonight that you haven't had formally presented before, but will at the upcoming May 19th City Council meeting, is the Discovery Project. The Discovery Project is a federally funded project for local communities such as us to assist in the gathering of real hydrological and geomorphological data that influences our flood risk, right? So this is a great opportunity for our community to ensure we have current and accurate flood risk data. Well, that's all I have to say about that one. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so the boards and commissions have had varying degrees of engagement in 2020. And over the next couple of slides, I'll update you on their activities. I asked for each chair to input from the board or commission information into this update. I wanted to make sure that they had that opportunity and what you heard came from them. So let's, on this slide, we begin with the Planning Commission. As you know, the Planning Commission is a quasi-judicial body. It's so critical to the state-mandated planning function. As it's guided by the City of Manitou Springs Code, the review of specific development and permit applications, plans, requests for variances, and the like are examined in this body. They only see what's mandated by code. You know, they work in coordination with the planning department. There's an administrative process that may or may not go on to the Planning Commission process. Planners can expend 25 to well over 100 hours preparing each item that goes to the commission. The work includes pre-application development, advisement, there's the formal application review process, formal meetings with applicants, and then finally preparation of those staff reports that the commission uses. So as you'll note on this, there were certain strategic planning projects that have been impacted by COVID, such as we noted on here, there's delayed writing of some new ordinances, such as the e-bike, short-term rentals, delayed completion of the food assessment, and then of course some of the applications that have been submitted, folks haven't been able to move as quickly through the process as maybe they would like to because of their consultants, or because we were down for a couple of weeks in our movement home. And so we'll be ramping that back up here in the next couple of weeks, which is really exciting. Go ahead, next slide, please. All right, so the Housing Advisory Board. The next two slides provide an update about the Housing Advisory Board, or HAB. The first goal around the Brothers Energy Efficiency Program, their offices should reopen in June, and the board expects to see some meaningful progress in this area, including notification of prior finalists. There may be some folks who will not move forward with their projects because of economic impacts, and so if that's the case, we'll be reaching out and identifying some new folks. The second goal is city property reviews as well. That should move forward as the board is able to re-engage. And third, I expect that over the course of 2020, HAB and the URA will find meaningful opportunities to explore affordable housing. I look forward to getting to know both these bodies more in the next few months. I had not had the opportunity before we went to a remote working opportunity to get to know folks at the URA, so I look forward to that. All right, next slide, please. All right, continuing with the HAB, or the HAB, there are several items that they're working on that may not have been presented to you previously. The ADU, the accessory dwelling unit ordinance, that we expect to be rolled up under the code rewrite project that we're getting underway. So stay tuned for that. The second goal, new, excuse me, this one's new, this isn't the second goal, but new homeowners and renters resource guide. So this was recommended by Plan Manitou, and the HAB completed this, and that guide has been posted on the City of Manitou Springs website under the Housing Advisory Board section. If you need assistance finding that or would like a copy sent to you, just contact anyone in planning, myself or any of the other folks, and we'll get that to you. And then let's see, with regard to COVID impact, so we're working hard to ensure for the boards and commissions that there is no or limited budget impact to all these functions. They're very important to the city. If the programs are impacted, we're going to be working hard to identify new opportunities for board and staff success. The statement at the bottom of this slide is not worded correctly, so thanks for letting me clarify that. Next slide, please. All right, so the Open Space Advisory Committee, or OSAC, this is another important aspect of planning, right? So this is the acquisition and maintenance of open spaces throughout the city. This is a very enthusiastic group. I have been struck since I've come on and was able to sit in meetings with them and participate in some projects. They're very enthusiastic, and this is hard work. Many of us are volunteers working on these things, and they certainly are that. Forward movement by OSAC is definitely an area that requires a lot of coordination between committee members and the planning staff. For example, the committee recommended the renewal of the Red Mountain and Eagle Mountain Trail easements. These are 3-year easements. They are temporary easements. They are not permanent easements. So staff was charged with going ahead and getting those renewed. We did that, and did that in a way that there wasn't any sort of bridge collapse, if you will, between the expiration of those and when they began. Trailhead signage, we're fortunate in the planning department that one of the employees, Dylan in particular, has a really strong GIS and graphic design skill set. And so he was able to work with OSAC and create some really good maps that will be placed at 6 trailheads. At the last in-person meeting that OSAC had, they finalized and agreed upon a design. I think that we looked at, I would ask anybody to jump in, but I know they're not on here. I think we looked at 24 different variations of shading and contour lines, and finally came to a place where we chose one that we think will work the best. It will wear the best with regard to the weather, sun, and different elements. So those will be off to printing if they haven't already. Our printer in Boulder was closed for a period of time and should be reopening. The frame for those signs the frames have been completed. They're sitting in Public Works, and when those guys are able to get back to a normal schedule, those should be installed, and we can finish the installation of the graphics as well later in June. So that'll be really nice for visitors and residents to the community. Let's see. I think let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So we have a number of goals that we're still working on. These are, again, staff and committee involvement intensive. And so we're still working through those. And as you can see, we don't have new and specific updates to report at this time, but I would expect over the next few months, we'll be able to make some good headway on that. All right, next slide, please. All right, so historic preservation. The historic preservation review process, like the planning review process, is heavily reliant on the collaborative work of the commission and the staff. Staff is responsible for the administrative processes and reviews, project initiative, ordinance development, working at a state level with the agencies that oversee that function. I would like to comment on the goal, the Historic District Code Amendment. I think that there was a question early on by Councilor Wolf about this, and Michelle took the time to explain that. So I won't go into that, but we're really excited about that. I think that's going to present a lot of great opportunity for. So incentives and mini grants. Historic Preservation Commission and the work that they're doing, we don't have any specific updates to provide at this time. Before the commission, I believe they've had the last 2 meetings off or not scheduled because of COVID. There wasn't work to do, but we are in the department looking at applications and working with homeowners who have questions. COVID impact for the HPC. Just like the others, we're working hard to make sure that there's limited or no budget impact to this function. It's really important to a lot of homeowners who live in a historic district. So we're working hard on that. And if we do have to make an impact, or if there is an impact somewhere, we're going to look for new opportunities for staff and board success or commission success on that. All right, next slide, please. All right, finally, code enforcement. So code enforcement is another important area that impacts everyone's lives, whether professionally or personally. Whether you're in city council or a board or commission, or you're a resident or even a visitor to Manitou Springs. And so how this has been structured over the last few months is really important to address. So code enforcement, the supervision of this has moved over to the police department. Having said that, it's not, the day-to-day function isn't all in the police department. Code enforcement, as all of you know, is a very unique and challenging function for every community. We have a single officer who has a dual planning and law enforcement role. That officer has to understand city code as it relates to all kinds of projects, ranging from a construction site to bear safe trash cans. And violations have to be addressed in a sensitive and certain way. It requires support from planning, the police department, and occasionally judicial processes. So in an effort to achieve success, Chief Churchill's group and my group, great team, we're working together to implementing a strategy that's strongly coordinated. Our goal is to rapidly address problems in the community. And again, this can be anything from a construction project to a bear safe trash can. I'm really optimistic about the strategy. Sergeant Warden has worked closely with Kai and myself on this. Looking forward to that. From a reporting standpoint, each week code enforcement provides updates via the city administrator's report. And as you'll have noticed from last Friday's report, there were 208 issues that have been noted as resolved. There are a number that are still open, but that's good for a single officer to go through that process. Some of them are very large issues and some of them are minor. The team that has been working with code enforcement has also been engaging with other communities in the region, including Colorado Springs, to learn best practices, identify strategies that work well in Colorado communities. So I'm hopeful that over the next couple of months, we're going to identify some really new and interesting opportunities for us in the community. And with that, that is my update on planning. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the opportunity to work with all of you. I'm going to go ahead and pass the hat over to Chief Churchill to talk about the police department. Thanks, guys.
Christine, could you just add one quick thing? Because I know Chief Forsett did not have a chance. With the training program, it's right now or the training building, it's in the survey process, correct?
Yeah, the fire training facility, yeah, that's a good point. So with strong project management skills in the department, we're looking at ways that we can support the other departments and the other functions around the city. And yeah, as I mentioned, and as Denise just mentioned, the fire department training facility is one of those. We've collected several bids on the process. We had begun to engage the survey process just before everything closed and our consultants had to begin working remotely. They're in the process of mobilizing and we'll be able to get that survey process up and running. That'll take 4 to 6 weeks. During that time, we'll be moving forward with the other consultants and contractors on what it's going to take to get the facility up and going. Our goal is to make as much progress as we can by the end of the year. We are cognizant of the fact that that being incapacitated for a couple of months, not from our perspective, but from the surveyor's perspective, that's real time. So losing 2 months of field time resulted in losing 2 months of of final design and construction times. So we may be a little behind there, but we're hoping to make up for it on the backside.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, you bet. Thanks.
Mayor, do we want to take a 5-minute break? We have the police and the planning department to go through, and then we'll be, I think we're done at that point. Do we want to take a quick 5-minute break?
Probably. We have police. We just did planning, so.
Or, I mean, police and Public Works.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take, people want a 10-minute break? Does that sound?
Yes.
Take a 10-minute break. Okay, let's come back at 9:17 then. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. You know,
I can't tell from my screen. Judy?
Let me
Judy,
see if
can you
I
tell?
can.
Actually, I guess I can check participants, but
It looks like we have everybody back.
okay. Okay, let's go ahead and get started then.
Okay. Chief?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mayor, City Council, citizens Manitou watching, good evening. I'm happy to be here. And I'd especially like to give a shout out real quick to the citizens of Manitou. Without their continued support and willing abidance by the public health order, we could not be successful as a police department or as a city. And it's a credit to them and a credit to the type of character of our community that we are getting through this in the shape that we're getting through it. So thank you very much. So goal number one, it's not on my page, but goal number one of this police department is to protect and serve the citizens of Manitou Springs, and importantly, to enhance the quality of life for every one of those citizens and the visitors across the board. And the police department will implement strategies and build relationships and partnerships in order for us to be successful doing that. So I'll get started with my PowerPoint, and Mayor, I'll try not to kill you by just reading through bullet points. But so fortunately for me, I was hired in October, and on week one, I was handed a document by the interim chief to present to the city council that very weekend. And on it, it had 21 goals and objectives of mine for the coming year. So I'm very fortunate to have a roadmap planned out. And I got those goals and objectives because in July of 2019, there was an assessment of the police department done that was a comprehensive evaluation, and it outlined things that were seen needed improved, that were shortcomings, or that could just be enhanced. So we've worked hard on accomplishing those, and to date, I think we have almost 17 of those 21 accomplished. And what that's been able to do is allow me to, on top of those goals, start implementing my goals. And my goals, if you look at our work plan, are mostly philosophical. They're about building relationships. They're about enhancing quality of life. They're about creating partnerships and building trust and legitimacy within the police department from our community. So I'll get right on to these. Number one was conduct a comprehensive review of the policy and procedure manual and tailor it to Manitou Springs Police Department. Our policies, our general orders, they're over 500 pages long, are created by an online company called Lexipol. And what they do is they take best practices, they take the laws of the state of Colorado, federal laws, court decisions, and other events that happen, and they supply smaller police departments with, I don't know what happened, but I've been booted off.
You're on. You're still on.
Okay, my screen's gone.
Yeah,
Can you
you're
see
still
me?
on.
I'll keep going, but screen just completely went black.
Okay.
So we've been conducting that review of Lexipol and going through general order by general order with my supervisors. And as of May 1st this year, we have updated 20 general orders, modified them to specifics for Lexipol's generic. So we've made them specific to Manitou Springs Police Department and have reissued those to our officers. Lexipol is a living document. Since May 1st, there's been 4 new general orders that have been updated.
You're mute. Brian, you went mute. There you go.
Okay. So it is a goal of our agency that we've completed, but it will never end. Laws change, policies change, best practices change. Also, what I would say is maybe the feeling within the community would change. The police department might have to adapt to that and change policies and procedures based on that. And an example of something like that would be a vehicle pursuit policy. Back in the day, you chased cars when they ran from you. Our citizens today don't think that the risk to life is worth chasing somebody over a traffic infraction. So those policies have been modified. On to the next page, development of some standard operating procedures. I'll give you a quick example of what that might be that would fall outside of a general order. And that is, we recently received a utility off-road vehicle from the volunteer firefighters of Manitou Springs. Instead of selling that and making money on it, they saw that we had a need. We could use it for our homeless camps. We could use it for our special events downtown. We've been using it for patrolling, and instead of selling that, they gave it to us. What we didn't have was a standard operating procedure on how we were going to use it. Do you have to be trained on it? Who can drive it? When you can drive it? What you should use it for? So we've developed that policy, and that's an example of what an SOP would be. On the next slide, establish professional, reliable, timely human resources support and provide a separate office for necessary privacy. Now, building issues, working out of City Hall, our police department has grown a little bit. I think along with the rest of the city, we've kind of outgrown this building. So issues related to that, we're adapting to the best we can, but those decisions are outside my realm of authority or ability to change. As the goals relate to human resources support, what that means is for the citizens of Manitou Springs, they want to come down, they want to walk into the police department, and they want to come to our window and they want to talk to somebody. In the past, the window was closed for lunch and it was only open Monday through Thursday. And that is because we had, Bethany had about 10 different jobs she was doing. And on Friday, she had to close that window down so she could work in the property room and keep up with our property demands. We've been able to hire a part-timer named Ben. He comes in 2 days a week for 20 hours. He works 2 10-hour shifts. He helps us in the property room. He is an awesome asset. But what he also does in support of the citizens of Manitou is he enables Bethany to have that window open on Friday. So if you come into our office Monday through Friday now, 8 to 5, you can see somebody at that front desk and you can get help or you can get support or you can get the paperwork that you're looking for. Further, just this afternoon, I was fortunate to talk to a former Manitou high school graduate from the class of 2017 that's now a college student down in Florida. He's coming back for the summer. He wants an internship. And I said, hey, I've got a job description called the Public Assistance Officer. Is that something you'd be interested in? And he said yes, and we're going to meet sometime, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, about putting him to work for an internship where he can get some college credit, but it may help us enhance our ability to support the citizens of Manitou, have that window open longer, and maybe recruit an officer for the future when he comes back to town. Next slide. Conduct a review of the physical office space. Like I already mentioned, the police department in the building's been evaluated. Those are beyond my control. Next slide. Upgrade and replace the camera system. That's been done. We had a problem. Our interview room was audio recording. You couldn't turn it off. So a person with their lawyer, we cannot close the door. They cannot have a private room to themselves to discuss facts of a case or current situation. So that's been fixed. Sergeant Savine took care of that. We also had some cameras that were down and weren't filming inside the building, and that's been repaired. Vehicle equipment replacement policy. We were supposed to get 3 new cars this year. I had a car 2 days ago spring a leak, bunch of oil in the parking lot. Some of our vehicles are getting old, but because of COVID, because of budget restrictions, a great plan. We were working as a team with the city. Not just police department, but maybe public works on how do we update our fleet. We were working with Leah Ash on that and Enterprise and some other people, and had a great plan, but that's been put on hold. Conduct a review of the hiring process in consideration for the type of candidate MSPD is seeking. I think we all know that MSPD is a young department. It's had a lot of turnover. No fault of the leadership within the agency, but I think what's imperative, especially for a city with the personality and character of Manitou, is that you get the right people on a bus as a police department. And what I mean by that is it takes a personality to be successful, the right type of personality on the police department to be successful in Manitou. If your idea of being a police officer is cops and robbers, and that's where it ends, Manitou's not the place for you. This police department is focused on the quality of life. It's focused on being a bridge between people in crisis, people in need that need social services and supports. And you have to have the maturity and the mentality to want to take the extra time to solve a problem. And by that, I mean, say an officer goes to a domestic, typical police officer going to domestic, you're going to stop fighting. And if somebody needs to go to jail, I'm going to take you to jail. Handcuffs are on you and off we go. And I'm done with that. Well, in Manitou, and our philosophy is take the time. And if the people want to talk, find out what led to the domestic, what led to the problem that called you there. See if you can be the bridge that helps them resolve the problem that led to the domestic fight. And if you can, offer those services. We have an information sheet with every single resource that's available to somebody in El Paso County. And it is the top hyperlink on the front page of our police department's webpage on the city's website. If that police officer has the maturity and the willingness to help solve that problem, then you've eliminated another domestic the next time when the person gets out of jail or after the police officer leaves. And you've helped enhance somebody's quality of life. We can't resolve addiction problems. We can't resolve employment problems or behavioral health problems, but we can help. We can be the link. We can be that support. In Manitou, that's what I require of our officers. The last time we had an employment process, before the 30 people that were in that room took that test, I gave that same speech to them. And I said, if that's your idea of policing and you want that type of community, you take that test. If your idea is doing nothing more than being cops and robbers and chasing the bad guy, don't waste your time, don't waste my time, don't take this test. So it's about getting the right people on the bus. And I think if we do that, we won't have the turnover and we'll be able to build our police department up and get a lot of tenure here, where otherwise people stay 2 or 3 years, get the experience, and they go off to Colorado Springs PD. It starts very first day before you take the first question on the first test. That's how you get qualified applicants to stay on your police department. Next page, review of existing pay ranges. This is something the interim chief got accomplished through the city council. I thank you, city council, and I thank Chief Joe Breister for this. And that is a step increase pay scale. What it did was make our police department competitive pay-wise with the region. It's already saved me one officer, got offered a job by the Colorado State Police. The officer turned it down. He likes what we're doing here, and he makes enough money now to feed his family and sees a future here. And he turned down a state police job to stay here in Manitou. And it's thanks to this city council and thanks to Chief Joe Breister for getting that done that made that possible. Also, getting those right people on the bus I was talking about, the hiring process we were involved in just prior to COVID was a lateral process. I'm trying to recruit experienced officers, somebody 10, 15, 20 years that can come in, has the mentality, has the attitude, and has the ability to train our younger officers. Those people are used to a certain salary range because they've been on other agencies for a while. This step increase has allowed me to bring in older officers, more experienced officers, made us competitive with other agencies where otherwise I'm always looking for recruits. So thanks again for that. Next page. Prioritize efforts to maintain and authorize staffing levels and conduct evaluation of shift schedules. This year we've hired, since October, we've hired 3 people and we've lost 2. One failed out of our field training officer program and the other one left and went to the Colorado Springs Police Department. But that pay scale, we were in a hiring process just before COVID where I had, was about 2 weeks away from hiring a detective, a very qualified guy that was on the sheriff's department for over 20 years, had been a supervisor in their violent crimes bureau. He's still on hold, and we were doing that lateral process. So hopefully, when this is all over, we'll be able to get back up and run and hire those 2 people. Also, there is an unfunded opportunity, hopefully in the future, for an assistant chief or somebody else, middle management, to come in and help. Currently, our officers are working 12-hour shifts. And if you're focused on quality of life, you're focused on customer service. If you've worked 4 12-hour shifts in a row and 3 of those days have required overtime because you've had to help cover for somebody that's off sick, somebody that's off training, or somebody that's gone to court, it can wear you out by day 4. And anybody, I don't care who you are, if you 4 12-hour days in a row and you've added, say, another 12-hour shift on top of that, it's going to affect your ability to provide quality customer service. So I'm hoping in the future we add these extra 2 officers, maybe even 1 or 2 more down the road. We'll be able to go back to 10-hour shifts or something that gives not just our citizens, but our police officers a little higher quality of life. Next slide. Authorize and hire 1 additional full-time civilian employee. Now, I wasn't able to get the full-time employee, but we did get Ben at halftime. He works those two 10-hour shifts, 2 days a week. I need him to help with the property room. I need him full-time. But right now, he's an awesome employee. He's a great help to the front desk, great help to Bethany, great help to Sergeant Warren, great help to me, and to the citizens of Manitou that walk into our lobby and have somebody greet them at the window. So it is our hope that eventually he can go from part-time or 20 hours a week to full-time at 40 hours a week. And that was the advice, the assessment that was done last July. Staffing levels are low. Utilize sergeants as field training officers. This has been done. This is the current practice and a common practice within our police department to have a sergeant fill in as an FTO. One thing we've already done this year was a full reassessment of our FTO program. We updated the manual and brought in a software company called Agency 360. And what this does is it allows our FTOs to go from a handwritten paper form type of field training process to an online monitored and evaluated software program that tells the field training officer what's lacking in the trainee, what subjects need to be hit a little harder. It really helped bring us into the modern age and helped streamline our FTO process that we can do more with less people. And I think our 3 new trainees that are fully to work now benefited from this software, and we were able to get it at a good price. Next slide is provide leadership and supervision training to newly promoted supervisors. We haven't had a supervisor promoted since 2018. That was Sergeant Alex Ballard. But we are looking for ways to train them. Sergeant Warden was supposed to go to the FBI National Academy Convention in June. It's been canceled. I was looking at going to the International Association Chiefs of Police Conference in October. That's probably going to get canceled. So what we're doing is we're trying to come up with some in-service training in-house by with our own people, and trying to start to build a succession program. So officers that are in our department now will someday sit in my chair, will someday sit in Sergeant Warden's chair, and Sergeant Ballard's and Sergeant Savine's chairs. A little while back, we had Officer Rathbun conduct an in-service training on a new law and procedure that came out. And on May 25th, we've got one of our newest officers, Leo Strand, is going to give a presentation on firearms safety to a board, the supervisors, and I'm hoping to involve a few people from outside the agency, but it's going to give him an opportunity. He's had to put a whole booklet together on firearms safety and then talk about what that means, what it means on the street, what it means in the building, what it means liability-wise. And also give him time, face time, giving training and presentation, and that'll pay him dividends someday when he's a supervisor. Next slide is the mid-level command position. It's my hope someday to have that. I need an assistant chief. I could use another thought process, another advisor at a agency supervisory level. Our sergeants are very good. They're at a personnel level. They think in personnel levels because that's what their job description requires of them. But hopefully someday I get somebody else in or bring somebody up that can help me at an agency level, at a philosophical level, implement new strategies and procedures. Next
Brian,
slide.
can I interrupt for a moment? How many more slides do you have?
I'm on slide 80 and I go to 99.
Can you
But
try to?
many of these are duplicates and I'll start skipping.
Yeah, if we could start skipping and moving forward, just because we don't want to be here till 11. So if we, and I apologize for that, but if you could.
I agree with you, ma'am. Okay, next one, establish formal consistent process for promotions. We haven't had a promotion since 2018, and we've got nothing on the books for any time soon. Clearly define the policy, the policing philosophy to be utilized, and then train mentor employees on that. And this is where I get to where I could talk to you the next 2 hours, because it's about a focus on quality of life. It's about what our citizens need, and it's about what we do for our community. And it's about us working as a team with the rest of the city departments to implement these philosophies. So what I'll tell you, so I don't get to talk into it too much, if you go to the police department's page on the city's website, there is the statement on there from me called the Statement on the Quality of Life. And it is the philosophy for our police department where we want to go in the future. Next slide is the emergency management responsibilities. Those have been kicked to the fire department. As you saw earlier, our fire chief knows what he's doing. I am happy that he's in charge of this, and he has been a great mentor and a guide for me. So I learn a lot from him, and that emergency operations management manual is in the right hands. Next goal is talking about seized and confiscated firearms and what we're doing with that. We're up to speed on getting the shell casings in the NIBIN, the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. That's all about fired shell casings. They're like fingerprints. You can match one up to another one in a different scene. Raw tools is something interesting I'd be happy to talk with people about in the future on how we're destroying firearms that have been confiscated and made it through the court process. Internal affairs process, cage file storage, slide self-evident. We've moved those files to my office, and we are currently working with human resources on updating our internal affairs process. Resolution of employee conflict and dissension, same as previous slide. Establish and maintain relevant partnerships. On this, I've got a lot of notes and a lot of things I could talk about. The next 3 slides are basically the same, but they all talk about partnerships. How are we successful as an agency? How are we successful as a city? And that is through partnerships. And one thing, I'll hit one bullet point on this, and I think we can all relate to it, is the homeless, behavioral health problems in Manitou. If there's no other greater partnership that we need to work on to build, is how do we help people in crisis? How do we help our homeless? How do we help people in need? A couple of weeks ago, we gave a briefing to City Council that walked through the physical process of homeless camps. What do you do with the homeless camps? But what about the people? What about the people in those camps? How do you help them? What do you do with them? If they're in crisis, if they need something, or even if they don't. And most people we find in our camps in the mountains, that's where they want to be. So how do you provide resources to them? This Friday, I have a meeting coming up with Aspen Point. They have offered to give us 3 iPads. We're going to work on an MOU where our officers will be able to, in real time, with people in crisis, through the iPad, set up a meeting with a clinician that can make a referral right then. Instead of trying to get somebody to go to Colorado Springs and trying to get the Beacon unit out, we can do it standing on the street, standing in Soda Springs Park, standing on a hillside, through an iPad with a clinician at Aspen Point, and make it happen. And I'll be happy, anybody that wants to talk to me about that, I'll be happy to sit down with them at a sidebar and get into detail on what the plans for that are. But I'm very excited about it. Next goal, maintain relevant partnerships, effective collaborations. Bullet points kind of speak for themselves. Very important to me. Next slide is the same. Next slide is the same. And you'll see there's so many slides because that's the point of what we do. Slide 89. I still can't see my screen. So if you're on slide 89, has reduced the number of complaints against officers by 5% 2020 compared to 2019. So far, year to date through May 1st. Last year, we had a grand total of 8 formal complaints already on police officers. A little unfair because 3 of those were internal complaints based on vehicle crashes. This year so far, not a single complaint, not a single vehicle crash by a police officer or against a police officer on this agency. We've only had 1 formal complaint. That was against me, and that was against me for enforcing the incline closure, and that was based on my use of authority that Manitou Springs had no authority to close the incline. A little bit out of my hands. We've taken care of it, but our officers are doing very good, to say the least. Basically, all the next slides are from our project sheet. They overlap with a lot of our goals. We can flip through those quickly because a lot of them are already completed, and I've already talked about them. And slide 94, social media platforms. Cannot say enough good things about Alex, our new PIO officer. I'm on the phone with him daily. Hey, can you plug this? Can you talk about that? Can you help me figure out a way to say something or a way to get something out on social media? I don't even have a Facebook page, never have. I need a young guy to tell me how to do that stuff. So thank you, Alex. And then finally, what we have are statistics. If you go through the statistics, especially on the bar graphs, you'll see that when COVID hit, everything went down. Everything across the board went down into April. And if you get one thing out of these statistics, that is, as police officer proactivity went down necessarily because of COVID, we've gone to tier 4, and I've had to restrict their ability to do traffic stops and be proactive. Crime also went down. In our town, crime did not go up with a lack of police presence, a lack of police proactive enforcement. Crime went down. That's because we have a great community partnership, police community partnership in the city of Manitou Springs. We're well led by a good city council and a great mayor. We have great partnerships that were pre-established. People call me on the phone. People call our police. We're here for them. And for the community, if you need help, we're here. Call 911. If you need a service, if you need support, if you need to reach out, go to the city's website, come to the police page, and there are 4 hyperlinks at the top of that page that'll get you to who you need to be to. And that's it for my presentation.
Thanks, Chief. So now we're into Public Works. Jeff.
All right, thank you very much. We've truly hit the highlight of the evening, which will be the last briefing of the day. So
And short, right, Jeff?
I'm going to make this quick. I'm going to hit the highlights. You can always email me with questions. So I'll be running the anchor leg tonight. So we'll go straight into the projects. And real quick, I'll go over Soda Springs, just hit the highlights of it. It is a GOCO-funded Greater Outdoors project. Phase 1 is a master plan designed to develop the west end of the Soda Springs Park. Second phase will be the pavilion area. The third phase will be the center of the park. We've already got Bohannon Houston's topographical survey is complete. Landscaping architect is on board to do the landscape, the architect work for us. And then we've contacted the floodplain administrator to make sure we're doing the right things with the floodplain. Next slide, please. Maps, I'm not going to get into that because Jared and Denise just gave you a nice briefing on that, so you know where we stand. The Ruxton Avenue design, we've contacted, myself and Dole have been in contact with Colorado Springs Utilities about undergrounding the electrical services, raw water line, and scheduling and scope. We also met with COG briefly, just a conceptual thought about a bus turnaround turntable. That's just a discussion, nothing pertinent on that right now. And I believe the last session you approved the right-of-way survey for the folks up there on Ruxton. Next slide, please. Creek Walk Trail, phase 1 and 2 are complete down on the east end down there, the east end down by where Wildcat was working. So phase 3 and 4. Phase 3 is from the pool to the chamber. Phase 4 is from the chamber to Hiawatha Gardens. We have some TAP grant money to start approval for CDOT for construction for phase 4 design funds. And we also have some waiting, there's a complex right-of-way through there, so we have to get a survey done through there, which we're working on right now. Becker's Bridge, that should say we did request, our URA requested $78,080. You already approved that. I believe that was the last session for the additional work that needed to be done. Hiawatha Gardens has been on hold, but we did complete the asbestos abatement, and the roofing is now complete. The roofers came out and completed that the other day. Public Works remodel, construction drawings were received from Cord, our architectural designers. We sent them to Pikes Peak Regional for approval, and we're moving forward on that. Hopefully, we'll be out for bid, and we can get that underway. City Hall remodel. City Hall remodel, we saved a lot of money by using the University of Colorado Denver Architectural Department. Instead of costing us an arm and a leg, it's only cost us about $7,000 because they're using it as a teaching opportunity for the architectural students as well. Next slide. The Cannon parking lot, pairing up with PERB. to talk about beautifying the parking lot with some plants and some trees and some shrubs. It looks a little barren right now, so we want to try to get that looking better. The Facilities and Parks Master Plan, that is a DOLA grant worth $100,000, and the scope of that is, and we put that on BidNet, so it's out right now for bid. Excuse me. And the creation of the master plan was to help staff fully identify all the city-owned structures, better prioritize critical maintenance issues, and help structure a routine maintenance plan to prevent failure of city facilities. Identify and implement energy-conscious updates where possible, allow the city of Manitou Springs to evaluate a decrease in carbon footprint and conservation of energy. The plan will also identify structural vulnerabilities, such things as flooding, wildfires, and aid in community operations, the COOP goals, as well as hazardous mitigation. Downtown improvements, we have some money for that, about $180K. We've been brainstorming, and we've come up with some ideals that we'll bring to council once I run it through leadership with Denise and Roy about possibly refurbishing where the clock is. The city clock, it needs some work on it. Maybe we can beautify that park and make it really nice. Some LED lighting on the arches. The Wheeler Park improvements. Wheeler Park needs a lot of work. There's not much to it there other than a few rocks. So I think that we could do a lot with that money and really make it look great. Bridge repairs, right now we're focusing on Spa Bridge repair. We're going to do foam jacking from a company that comes out. We identified a void that was under the south side of the bridge before you go across it. And what that does is that stabilizes it. And then we're going to, it keeps it from sinking any further. It also can push it up for us. It expands. And then we're going to use our rock mason, our stone mason, to come out and fix the crack that's on the side there. And we have funds for that. Next one's National Forest Permit. It's a new item brought to our attention by the National Forest Services. We're working on agreements with them and working with them to make sure we have everything in order that we need for our reservoir area. Next slide, please. Okay, the water and sewer, big initiatives. Clarksley Road, we applied for a State of Colorado revolving fund loan program for $535,000. We're hoping to start in August timeframe. That's for water and sewer improvements up and down Clarksley. Same thing on the next one for replace Mountain View water and sewer line, actually both from Sutherland Road to Sutherland Place, and that's about $655K, and also starting in an August time frame. The next one looks like it may be on hold, just like we're not going to have enough time to do the auxiliary water tank, so we're going to look at that though and make sure. The hydropower upgrade at the water treatment plant is scheduled for design in late 2020. The money's already been approved for that, and the $175K sitting for that right now in a budget line. And the finished upgrade of filter unit 1 is underway right now and estimated to be done in July. And it's been going on for about a month and a half. And the money was already there for that as well.
And it's important to mention that that's an enterprise, that's not the general fund. So that's an enterprise funding. That's
correct. So anything I mentioned with the water and sewer or with the stormwater is enterprise. Manholes, we have, there's finished 4 sewer manholes at Pilot Knob area. Went up there and did a research on that, did some potholing up there and dug some holes. I think we need to get some engineers to look at that. I don't think we need to add 4 manholes, but I think we need 2 to maximize what we can do up there for service and flow from that area to prevent future sewer problems up there. Number of sewer backup speaks for itself. We've had a lot, especially when people were home in COVID. It's about 18K in repairs and overtime. Took a lot. Sandblast and repair of the Mesa tank. We're waiting on Colorado revolving loan program for that, and I found it today. The last time we did it, it cost about $138,000 to sandblast that and repaint it. So that's a little chunk of money. Install new drainage panel on Pine Ridge Avenue. We're starting the RFP process on that to help with drainage in that area. Sponsor and host cleanups, Ruxton, Sutherland, Fountain Creek. We're moving to accomplish that in the July time frame. We're going to move and slowing it because we're going to monitor the COVID-19 and see if we can do that, get up there with it. And our new interim lead up there is Joshua Mall, and he'll be leading that effort. Vector truck, we repaired the radiator that replaced, and the vacuum hose. It cost about $12,000 to do that, but we're good to go. Next slide. GIS folks, working real great up there with mapping of the city sewer and water systems. Every time we have a break, we remap it. That way we'll have an updated list of where everything is. We're also working with the Deputy City Administrator, Roy, on the C-Clicks Fix reporting system, and also GISing the aerial maps for the National Forest permitting area like we mentioned at the reservoir. Next slide. So that's the projects that I ran through super quick for you. But the public works part, as far as clean Manitou, has been huge. And the guys and gals have really been busting hump on this to get things right. So I'll just highlight a little bit of this. The department's been working diligently on city cleanup project, working on parks, establishing the healthy vegetation, welfare of playgrounds and pavilions, power washing trash cans up and down Manitou Avenue pavilions, picnic tables, repainting, staining where it's needed, deep cleaning, disinfecting facilities, restrooms, gathering places within the city limits. We've been cleaning sidewalks, gutters, street sweeping, as well as cleaning parking lots. We've been cleaning mineral springs locations, being disinfected daily, very important. And also the offices in the city hall, some of them received new coats of paint. And Roy, I just got a bunch of pictures at the end here. If you could just run through them, flip through them at your own pace, and then we can see. This one right here is just parking lots we just got resurfaced for Wichita lot as well as City Hall. And there's some more of the parks that are really beautiful this year.
We did put up a bear sighting sign on the incline today. Keep going, Roy. But yeah, we put up a bear sighting sign.
And that concludes the brief.
So with that, Mayor, we are done. I would just ask if anybody has questions to please email them to me by Friday, and then we'll be able to bring them back. Or if you want to call me, whatever is best or most convenient for you. So thank you for your time. Sorry it went so long. We tried to keep it short, but I'll turn it back to the mayor.
Okay. Great, thanks, Denise. And thanks to all the department heads who gave us that briefing. That's basically a full day's budget retreat compressed into about 3 hours. So thanks for hanging in there and good information. Appreciate it. And so we'll get our questions to you. Okay, the last discussion item for tonight is consideration of options for moving forward on the Ward 3 councilor vacancy. Judy Morgan was going to do some research for us, so she's going to bring us up to date with some of the factors that we might want to consider. Judy?
Yes, so the research I did had to do with having an election. I just wanted to update you on that. So I did got some pricing on that. It would be about $10,000 for a Ward 3 election. And it's at the soonest it could possibly happen would probably be like in September. And the other thing I found out was, well, that I realized, but what had to do with the candidates. So once you open that up to the electors of that ward, it's no different than a candidate election. So anybody who wishes to fill out the nomination paperwork, get their petitions, the proper number of signatures, their name goes on the ballot. So you could have a whole different group of people, or more people, or less people, or it basically opens it up. So now the choice of who the citizens can choose from are those people who decide to be candidates for that particular special election. So that basically wraps up the election portion of it. You know, that was the general information you had asked for. And the direction I'm asking for is, what do we want on next week's regular sessions to address this vacancy?
Okay. Well, I guess we've got a couple of options there. I think probably the reasonable thing to do is kind of to go around the table round robin style and see what our general thoughts are. So I guess what I'd propose is we do this first and just get general comments. If there are questions, it'd be a good time to ask them. Then we could go around a second time and see if we're coalescing towards some sort of direction for next week. Okay. So who'd like to go first? Okay, Councilor Chander, please. Oh, you're muted. Judith, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I really don't feel that the residents of Manitou want us to spend $10,000 on an election that may not occur until September or later with any number of candidates. I don't think that that's where we need to go. So I oppose that. I think that I would prefer us to take another look to see if there's a way we can take another look at the two candidates again, or just move as a council to choose one of them. So that's my input. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Who'd like to go next? Okay, Councilor Wolf, and you're muted. Councilor, okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Well, at first I was interested in the election idea, but I don't think we should wait till September, and I don't think we should spend $10,000. So one of the emails we received this week was from someone who said, "Why don't you draw straws or flip a coin?" I hadn't really thought of that, but I suppose if we vote to do something like that as one of the options to look at, that I'm guessing that would be authorized. Is that maybe that would be a question for Judy to have to research, or Jeff or somebody, but if are we allowed to even consider something as quick and practical and inexpensive as that? Or is, I don't know.
I've seen that done quite a few times.
Oh, with other cities in the same situation?
Yes, where they have a tie vote and it's like you said, flip of a coin or drawing straws. So,
well, in that case, I think I'm leaning in that direction, although I could be persuaded by other conversation.
Okay, interesting thoughts. Thank you, Julie. Who's next? Mr. Shada?
Well, I kind of agree with Judith. I'm not excited about the election idea, especially kind of delaying putting somebody on council until September. I'm intrigued with the drawing straws. I think I would maybe suggest that we make one more whack at having the candidates spend some more time instead of just like little 5-minute questions, maybe a little bit longer time for each one of the candidates to kind of just talk about kind of just themselves. I guess I would like to take one more whack at that.
Okay, so you're looking for another set of interviews, is that correct, John?
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking here at Judy's options here, and so I guess it's sort of like option 2, or something like that.
Okay. Okay. Councilor Wolbrook, what's your thought?
I tend to agree that the length of time to wait for an election and the cost of it is probably not the best plan for us right now. I can go with, and I assume next week we could do a sort of a second interview round, but I'm also, potentially okay with the straw coin toss thing. Those are just, that's as specific as I can get right now.
Okay, that seems reasonable. Mayor Pro Tem Fortune.
Yeah, I just think it would be irresponsible of us that we're not doing our job if we go to a vote. I think the citizens expect us to come up with a solution quickly.
Okay.
I'm also very interested. Stability is very important to me, so kicking it down the road just makes absolutely no sense. I think we need to seat someone as quickly as possible. I know that I personally have gone out and set up times with both of the candidates that we narrowed it down to last week and have talked with them more. I can say it has definitely influenced my position. So at a minimum, I would like to perhaps do a little bit, I would encourage everybody to do that. Both of them were very amenable to coming and talking with me. That's a good thing. And I learned a lot. And lastly, I would say that I agree with John that a couple more interview questions would be fine if it comes to that. But certainly, I would like to have another vote given. And I do appreciate this time that we've actually had to think more about it. I needed that time to think more about it. After interviewing candidates last week. So that turned out actually, I think, to be a good thing. So yeah, I would like to get a decision made next week. And I think we can. I'm not crazy about the drawing straws, but if it comes to that, I would like to have a vote before we draw straws or flip a coin.
Okay. Julie, go ahead.
Oh, just quickly, I agree with everybody else. I prefer that the coin toss be a last resort, and I prefer that we have an opportunity to both interview privately as well as publicly for a second official round of interviews and then have another vote.
Okay.
I would prefer that we not leave it to complete chance unless that's our last option shy of a vote.
Okay.
I mean, to a public vote.
Okay, good. I think you stated that clearly. Good. Councilor Chandler, did I see you raise your hand?
Well, I'm really on board to, I appreciate Mayor Pro Tem meeting the candidates. I actually wasn't sure if we were supposed to do that, so I'm glad you did and had some insights. I agree 1 to 2 more questions at the next council meeting, and then we vote again. And if it's a tie at that time, then we flip a coin.
Okay. And Councilor Chandler, I think you've pretty well stated my position. I would favor bringing the candidates back, the 2 candidates, doing some more discussion with them, some more interview, go for a vote. And if we're deadlocked, then I think maybe we flip a coin. It seems like we're all sort of gravitating towards, I do think we all feel pretty strongly that we don't want to delay this. We don't want to push it out into the future very much. We don't want to spend $10,000 and we want to get on with business. I think that's probably a pretty reasonable approach. So let me just kind of take the temperature. Everybody who's okay with going that route, and I know you've said it, let's just raise our hands to show we're in support. Okay, so I think that's the direction we have. We'll invite those 2 candidates to come back to next week's meeting. We'll discuss matters with them, and we would anticipate going to a vote, and then if we have to, we'll flip a coin. Councilor Wolf?
Bring a penny just in case.
Okay.
And I guess mine is, I have a question just as far as the how. As far as the interview questions, is that something that we're going to decide in advance, or is that just something we come to the meeting and somebody will have some interview questions? Or
It's a good question there. I saw the Mayor Pro Tem had raised her hand, so maybe you have something to say to that point.
I was about to ask the very same question, and my recommendation was going to be that everybody, if anyone feels strongly about a specific question, to send it to Judy. And I don't know after that what we do, but maybe Judy could send them out for everybody. We'd have to come up with a process, which I'm kind of brain dead right now.
I think we are brain dead. What I might suggest, is that an understatement? Okay.
No, I was actually laughing because you said, I think we are all brain dead. And I thought, come on, that's a little extreme.
I'm sorry. I didn't, I can speak for myself. My brain is
Spot on.
okay. How about we each send 2 questions to Judy? That would give us a dozen questions. We can she could mail them out, and we could decide which ones we really want to go through. Okay, and kind of leave ourselves a little wiggle room. So, when would you need to have maybe Thursday by noon, Judy? Would that be soon enough?
Sure.
Okay, so we each send 2 questions to Judy by noon on Thursday. Those will be the questions that we will draw from that pool for next week. Okay, well,
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead,
Is
Nancy.
that, sorry, I'm interrupting, but I just want to say that the briefing that the staff gave was, the wow factor of how very much I'm pretty familiar with what the staff is doing, but as I reviewed the briefing and as they gave it tonight, I was again blown away by the incredible magnitude, breadth and depth of projects and initiatives that are being undertaken by our staff. So, and approaching it as a team. So, yay.
Okay, great.
I just want to get that out. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, next item, receive council correspondence. Anybody want to go first? Councilor Wilbrook?
Yeah, I just have the 2 things that I think everybody has. One is there's a petition circulating about an Airbnb that's coming up for approval, and I just wondered if maybe there could be a brief guidance on that. And I'll go ahead with my second one. The other one is the one about having everybody walk in one direction. And those are, I think everybody received that. So I'm really just speaking for everybody tonight. If we don't have to, it's not on the agenda, but if we could just talk about what's appropriate for both of those 2 things. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I recommend that the mayor work with the staff on coming up with a proposal? Since both of those were to all of council, it might be appropriate for the mayor to answer that on council's behalf.
Okay. I'd be willing to do that. Councilor Wolf?
Yeah. I'm not sure what that means about you making a decision on council's behalf, but I was going to propose, because I thought it was a pretty convincing email, I was going to propose that we add an agenda item to discuss whether to put a moratorium on the STOs, the short-term rentals, also known as Airbnb. I would like to have some discussion about that, even if it's, a month or 6 months, but it all goes toward, everything that was said in the email. So I won't go into it now, but I think that's something that we should talk about. And I'd love to also have the sidewalk proposal. I mean, we don't need to talk about that. That's easy to implement, but I was looking specifically at a moratorium, which I understand would have to be a council decision on the STO, on the short-term.
Right, yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, we could, okay, Denise, you've got a comment?
How about if I take that to planning staff real quick and get their perspective on that? Because Councilor Wolf, they're working on the short-term rental now, and let me see where they are, and then they can bring back an update, and then you guys can decide how you want to move forward from there. Would that work?
No, I'd like to have a discussion on the moratorium ASAP. I realize that it would have no impact whatsoever on all of the pending projects you're working on. I understand that if there's a moratorium, then if you've already received a project, you need to finish it and it goes before the commission.
Right.
If but no, I'd like to have a discussion on the moratorium sooner rather than later, personally.
Well, okay, would say then at our next work session, would that be soon enough? It would be 2 weeks. That would give staff a chance to bring us up to speed.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get any new applications in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'll answer that in 2 weeks, depending on how many applications get submitted between now and then. But yeah, I think that's probably safe.
Okay. Well, then we could look at maybe discussing that on the 26th. Okay. Okay, and then the other point was to walk in one direction. I think the city staff had looked at that. Denise, what was your thought on that?
We looked at that. We worked with the chamber on it and the business community. At this time, they were recommending not to do such. There were various reasons, so I can bring that back. But the business community really, because we did look at how could we do it in one way, what would the one-way signs look like, those things, and the business community really pushed back on that. So let me get together a white paper and we'll send it out.
Does that seem reasonable? Is that okay? Okay. Who else for council correspondence? Anyone? Okay. Councilor Wolf.
I got some phone calls and some emails, some of which were to me personally, some of which were to all of us, asking us to, vote a certain way on the Ward 3 opening. I got also a phone call that somebody didn't like the idea of us spending money on an election. I think that's all I got.
Okay. All righty. Mr. Shada, do you have anything?
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Councilor Chandler.
I just wanted to comment on the individual that emailed all of us about the one-way idea on the walking into town and being concerned about people not wearing masks. I injured my foot really bad about 3 months ago or 3 weeks ago. So every day I've been driving into town at different times all the way throughout the town and just observing people. And I have to say, especially this weekend, I was disturbed at the number of people in groups without masks, not social distancing, whether they were family groups or not, would not have compelled me to want to get out of my car. So I think we need to take a look at this person's suggestion or think of other ways to possibly do some social distance marking on the sidewalks in town for now.
Okay.
Oh, I have one more thing.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I just want to acknowledge this, my colleagues on City Council. I just want to remind all of us that we came into this year, and passed match and got the incline CUP through, and we, a pandemic and the incline closure and all sorts of things, and working with this great staff. I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm really pleased that I do believe that each one of us is working really hard to represent the citizens of our town. So thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem. You don't have anything, okay. And I will mention, I think we've all been included on a number of emails from Ron Spraggins. He had or Spraggins, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. He's had some questions about a zoning issue. I did have some communication with Christine in the planning department and with Denise, and it appears that the city is, in my mind, the city's done due diligence on that. And I think the direction is that it's an administrative issue. If he wishes to contact the city administrator, that would be the appropriate next step. I think city staff has spent a good deal of time trying to answer his questions. I think we've gone about as far as we can at that point. So the next step, if he's still not satisfied, would be to talk to Denise. So that's my perception on that, and that was so obvious that I felt I needed to look into that and address it. Okay, very good. Then if we go on to the city administrator report, Mr. Cheney.
Yeah, I just have one thing. We had a lot of citizens from the MAPS project wanting to bring back some more parking, and so I want to commend Dole and Jeff Jones with pushing that with Bohan and Houston to bring back some parking spots out there, and they did it. So good job on their part to get that done. So thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
I'm going to
Denise?
keep mine very short because you guys have had a long night, but I do want to share, on Friday, I had 3,000 masks here that we're going to use for City Hall, and businesses didn't have masks yet. So we gave the businesses masks to hand out over the weekend so that they could hand them out to anybody that did not have any. So we're hoping to get a large shipment, I think by Wednesday or Thursday this week, 20,000 that will be distributed to all the businesses. And then we're working on some hand sanitizer and other things to help with that. So I wanted to share that. The things that I have that we need to work on is the lighting questions for maps. So that is some questions that we have, the moratorium, and then the one-way direction. We'll get a white paper out for that. And I believe those are the only things that you've asked me to follow up on at this point. And thank you for indulging with us, and a shout out to the staff. As with you guys, the COVID, everything else has been a whirlwind this since January. So thank you for your leadership, and thanks for staff for all that they're doing.
Great. And Denise, please extend our appreciation to the department heads for the briefings tonight. It was we compressed a lot of information in a relatively short time. Well, it was a long evening. So I hope we all benefit from that.
I really appreciate it too. Thank you, Denise.
You bet. Thank you guys. And please send me questions. And if you want to meet one-on-one, meet whatever, we are here. There's a lot of information out there. And as you can see, there's a lot of projects and different things that's going on.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, great. Thank you all. It's been a long night. So let's bid each other adieu. This meeting's adjourned. Stay safe, stay healthy.
You too.
Bye-bye.